closed from midnight. City Hallway within the CBD, Parliament Road, Harambe Avenue and Taifa Road. All of them are already closed, so don't even try to move in that direction. No traffic is being allowed in and around the precincts of the KICC. Only conference vehicles accessing KICC will be allowed passage, and they have special passes for that. Members of the public are meanwhile advised to avoid affected areas and follow police directions. We'll keep on checking our traffic situation. Our reporter on the ground, Muthoni Brenda, will be bringing us up to speed with what's happening in the city centre, even as we continue with our other discussions, which we'll be talking about when we look at the headlines. Something else happening today is we do have an advisory by the Met Department on heavy rainfall. And the rainfall is expected, being experienced over several parts of the highland, west and east of the Rift Valley, central highlands, including parts of the southeastern lowlands, is expected to intensify to more than 20 millimeters in 24 hours. This advisory was issued last week on Friday, that was the 8th, and will remain in place till 14th, which is Thursday this week. So quite a number of areas of concern. Counties: Migori, Nyamira, Bungoma, Busia, Kakamega, Vihiga, West Pokot, Baringo, Elgeyo Marakwet, Trans Nzoia, Nandi, Uasin Gishu, Nakuru. And it's like all the counties, yeah? Quite a number of counties to experience this. Moderate to heavy rainfall, moderate probability of occurrence, 33% to 66% across the entire country, apart from a few counties in the northeastern part. Turkana is also included here, Samburu, Kajiado and Machakos. So this is an advisory by the Met Department on heavy rainfall, which stays up until Thursday this week. Meanwhile, Arsenal fans. Mafans wetu Arsenal mko wapi? Yes, musijali season yetu bana. Sindio? Finally, Arsenal beat West Ham, a much anticipated game yesterday. Watu hawajalala, nimekutana na watu, nikikuja kazini watu ndo wanaenda nyumbani. Game ilisha jana. 5 points clear at the top of the table. Man City are now struggling. All Arsenal haters, poleni. This is how we start the week. Karibu sana. Let's take a look at the weather situation. All right, we take a look at the weather update. Garissa, Kisumu and Makueni. In Garissa, partly sunny at 36 degrees this morning, 25 degrees the lows. Kisumu, light rain expected, lows of 19 degrees, highs of 27 degrees in Kisumu. In Makueni, highs of 31 degrees, mostly sunny today, lows of 19 degrees. Garissa, I think, is the highest there. Whether Garissa 25 is the lowest this morning, yoni kama ile tuna experience Nairobi leo. Other counties, in Mombasa, light rains expected in Bomet and Nairobi as well. And as I said, Nairobi, 25 degrees will be the highs. Currently, it is 17 degrees. 21 degrees in Bomet, lows of 14 degrees. Quite chilly in Bomet this morning. In Mombasa, it's highs of 31 degrees, lows of 25 degrees. Now, ukiangalia ile lows ya Mombasa ndio ile highs ya Nairobi. Yes. All right, that's the weather situation across some parts of the city. All right, let's take a look at the quote of the day.
Nature has given us all the pieces required to achieve exceptional wellness and health, but has left it to us to put these pieces together.
Yes, it's definitely in your hands to piece all those things together. Let's now come back and take a look at the local dailies and the regional ones in depth. All right, and if you look at most of the front pages, it's about the Africa Forward Summit. And we start off with the Star. France and Africa chart new course in Nairobi Summit, and a picture there of President Emmanuel Macron of France with his host, William Ruto, at State House Nairobi. And I can tell you for sure, I think President William Ruto is just using this summit to also show off the new look State House. Yes, for the first time, I think I saw the president now walking through one of his guests through the halls of State House, and it looks really nice, I must say. Forum is set to discuss trade, infrastructure, and security. Alafu pale chini wameandika Bonjour Africa. And this is one of those things that President William Ruto promised in his first year in office. He said, hii maneno ya African leaders wanaitwa African Summit lakini wanaitwa Russia. Ama wanaitwa African Summit iko France. He said no to that. Finally, it's happening, and he plays host to that. That's the main story on pages 4 and 5. And it breaks down on pages 4 and 5, because we do have a physical copy, just some of the things that they will be discussing there. And why exactly is France here for an African summit? Why not any other leader from Europe or elsewhere? So apart from the traffic situation, and I think the traffic situation, they talk about Kenya hosting Africa policy leaders ahead of summit. Hiyo bado kuna meeting ingine inaendelea. But now, historical moment as Africa resets relations with France in Nairobi. And President William Ruto there hosting Julius Maada Bio of Sierra Leone at State House, Nairobi. Another picture of him with African Development Bank Group President Sidi Ould Tah. And yes, also a comment there by the current Prime Cabinet Secretary and Cabinet Secretary, Minister of Foreign Affairs and Diaspora Affairs, Republic of Kenya, that's Musalia Mudavadi. So the Africa Forward Summit represents a defining statement about where Africa is headed, how Africa intends to engage the world, and the kind of partnerships that must shape the future of global cooperation. If you read this story, it tells you exactly why these people are in Africa, or in Kenya in particular, and why it should concern you. Because many people say, okay, why should I even care? You should. Just take a look at the dailies today. Other stories on the front page of The Star. New taxes loom for mobile users and gamblers in Finance Bill 2026. This is the other big discussion this week. Last week we mentioned the 5% excise duty imposed on Mitumba through the Finance Bill. And now they talk about mobile users, they talk about gamblers, and incidentally, inside pages, let me just tell you what's happening in as far as the Finance Bill is concerned, because the National Assembly has already issued a notice through the dailies on public participation. Watu wasiseme ati hawakuambiwa ati Finance Bill inakuwa discussed. Yes, there, on page 9 of the Daily Nation. This is an advertisement this is a Daily Nation. I'm just looking at the advertisement. So anasema, in the matter of Article 118 of the Constitution, in the matter of consideration by the National Assembly of the Finance Bill 2026. So it is notified that the Finance Bill of 2026 is a bill sponsored by the Honorable Kuria Kimani MP, which seeks to amend income tax, value-added tax, excise duty tax, or Excess Duty Act, Tax Procedures Act, and the Miscellaneous Fees and Levies Act, the Stamp Duty Act, and the Road Maintenance Levy Cap. The bill majorly contains provisions to ease in tax administration, and this is what they're inviting Kenyans to talk about. In compliance with Article 118 of the Constitution, the Clerk of the National Assembly hereby invites the public and stakeholders to submit memoranda on the Finance Bill to the Department Committee of Finance and National Planning. Any written memoranda on the bill should indicate the name of the person and organization submitting it and their contact details, and should be hand-delivered to the office of the clerk, first floor main Parliament buildings, Nairobi, or emailed to CNA, that's National Assembly, at parliament.go.ke, and Finance Committee at parliament.go.ke, to be received on or before Monday 25th May 2026. So you do have exactly 2 weeks. Usiseme ati hukupatiwa opportunity ya kudiscuss Finance Bill. And that is one of the things we'll be talking about. Remember, the Finance Bill ilileta joto sana in the year 2024. 2026 is here 2 years later, alafu unasikia Finance Bill tu ikipita hivi kwa radio. Chunga sana. Soma. Go share your views. Back to the front page of the Star. And this is the big discussion. We'll be back to take a look at these matters on Daily Nation later. Let's go back to the front page of the Star. Pale chini, DCP begins UK charm offensive ahead of 2027 general election. You'll realize that a lot of discussions around the party DCP will begin, especially now starting this week on the 14th with the by-elections in Emurua Dikir and a few wards elsewhere. DCP is very, very much involved in that. They've just come from a weekend where they held primaries for the Ol Kalou by-election, which comes later, I think on the 16th of July this year. So DCP everywhere. That's The Star. Fresh, independent, different, and you can grab yourself a copy of this paper for only 60 shillings in Kenya, 1,000 shillings in Tanzania, and 2,000 bob in Uganda. Turudi hapo sasa kwa Daily Nation. Wanasema show of might Nairobi, na hiyo picha ya Rais Ruto akiwa pale na mgeni wake Emmanuel Macron. Yeah, definitely a show of might. Nairobi welcomes over 50 nations at the Global Talks, the first to be held in Anglophone Africa. So that is one promise I think William Ruto lived up to. Anglophone are English-speaking countries. Wale French wanaitwa Francophone. West Africa, most of them are Francophone countries. Most of East Africa and Southern Africa are Anglophone countries. So diplomatic coup. Kenya today shines on the world stage, hosting world leaders, including heads of state, the UN Secretary General, and business executives for the France-Africa Summit. Note, it's called France-Africa Summit. And I think it was during the last France-Africa Summit where a lot of heads of state from Africa now had to travel to France, to Paris, for this summit. And President William Ruto was one of those who said no. So why, if it's an African summit, why are we coming to France? So this time round they said, it is France to come to Africa. And they've done. President Emmanuel Macron is here. It's a gathering that highlights the convening power of France President Emmanuel Macron and his host William Ruto. The forum is expected to reset the continent's ties with a former colonial power and advance new economic as well as political interests. It is true. Munaambiwa ni Africa Summit alafu munaitwa France. And then munawekwa kwa basi moja nyinyi wote mkitembea. So they've really covered this story on the Daily Nation pages 2, 3 and 4. So ukifungua, and nilikuambia President William Ruto is just using this to show off the new look State House. Yeah. The picture used on page 2 is of President William Ruto with his Liberian counterpart Joseph Boakai at State House, Nairobi, ahead of the Africa Forward Summit today. So they call it show of might. France has often faced criticism over its role in the governance problems that have affected some African countries, including frequent coups. Now, you know, France and Francophone countries, which are mainly on the West African side, probably that's where they get a lot of their support. Those countries speak French, and many may have expected that for France African Summit, it will be hosted in Francophone countries, in West Africa mostly. No, it is here in Kenya. And yeah, that's a coup. Why lie? Back to the front page and away from Matters France-Africa Summit. Pale juu, Matters Finance Bill. And this is a discussion I've been talking about with that invitation by the National Assembly for you to give your opinion on what you, or your reaction to the Finance Bill 2026. So one of those things that have been picked here, and this story is on page 19, is the promised salary tax relief. They're missing from the Finance Bill. You remember Treasury CS had promised that people who are earning less than 30,000 will be exempted from payee. Yeah, you remember? Treasury Cabinet Secretary had pledged some reliefs, including raising the tax-free salary band to 30,000 up from the current 24,000. But these are missing from the Finance Bill 2026, which proposes higher taxes to raise an additional 120 billion. Some of the highlights: excise duty on mobile phones, 25%, we talked about this. Small brewers to pay the full excise duty of 22 shillings and 50 cents per centiliter of pure alcohol. That 5% tax on mitumba shoes and clothes, we talked about it last week. 50% taxing imported vintage classic vehicles at the rate of 50% of the factory price. Factory price, because classic vehicles ni za kitambo sana, zishazeeka, lakini unaambiwa factory price. Gari iliundwa 1945. Unalipia 50% factory price. Yeah? Locally assembled and manufactured mobile phones now subject to 16% VAT. And something that has gone down is the government has reduced tax on ethanol from 500 shillings per litre to 88 shillings per litre. So those who deal in ethanol, what benefits. Tanga or Mombasa, Dangote now adds fresh twist to oil refinery. Nakumbuka hii debate about president akisema tunaunda refinery Tanga, Samia Suluhu Hassan akasema ya juu hiyo maneno. Now the discussion is changing. The main investor, Aliko Dangote of Nigeria, now says, actually, we could build it in Mombasa. Sio lazima tuende Tanga. Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote is looking at Kenya as a site of the 650,000 barrel a day oil refinery. His announcement coming days after Tanga in Tanzania was also touted as a location for the project he plans to build. Another big story, hantavirus. Yeah. How many years after COVID? 6 years after COVID. Hantavirus. Kenya to screen travelers from 23 countries. That's a big story on page 7 of this paper. Back page of the Daily Nation. Matters local football and local rugby. And as far as rugby is concerned, Kabras Juggernaut sweeps all before it joins elite club. And police halt Gor Mahia's title match in Nyayo Stadium stalemate. And that's the Daily Nation. The Standard focuses on matters finance bill, and they zero in on the fuel levy trap. So they talk about a bumpy road ahead, and they say the Treasury is set to saddle the country with billions in hidden debt through the road maintenance levy. The government plans to securitize an additional 5 shillings of the 25 shillings per litre levy to raise 120 billion, adding to 175 billion shillings already borrowed to pay contractors. Critics call it debt by another name, warning that road agencies and counties will be left with less for repairs while public debt climbs. So kuna ile fuel levy unalipa whether you like it or not, 25 shillings for a litre of petrol. So what happens is that it's supposed to go to counties to help them build roads and repair roads or simply maintain roads. That's a fuel levy. But the government is using this as security for debt. Ama security for loans. Lakini wanasema hapana, we're just securitizing the fuel levy. This is not a debt we are borrowing. It is a debt. And that's what the Standard says. Fuel levy trap. Hii Standard hata hiyo fuel nini summit hata wazungumzi huku ndani. Wameificha kule ndani. Page 5. France, Africa talks challenged on imperialism, and same photo with Macron and President Ruto at State House. Yes. Senate sounds alarm over fuel price hikes and consumer abuse. That's another story on the inside pages. On the back page, police bullets shoot down Trinity Starlets to retain FKF Premier League crown, and that's the ladies' local football league. Gor Mahia meanwhile drop points as APS Bomet and Sharks move out of danger zone. Right. And that's the Standard. Tukiangazia gazeti la Gachagua, ati gazeti la Gachagua. Gazeti la Taifa Leo, samahani. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele ni Gachagua angaria UDA Olkalao. Ndio ni habari kuu ambayo imepewa kipaumbele. Ndio maana nikaanzia nayo. Wewe wacha hiyo, mimi sijasema hivyo, wewe. Ni matokeo ya mchuja wa DCP na UDA yanaashiria hatari kwa kambi ya Ruto ikizingatiwa pengo kubwa la kura. The primaries zile za Olkalao where parties are trying to get their candidates ahead of the main by-election on 16th of July. So wanasema wapiga kura 23,000 walishiriki mchujo wa chama cha DCP. Imagine, party primaries alone. Set wameenda by-election. By-election ya Mbere ukumbuke ilikuwa na watu wangapi? 23,000 voters in total. No. Ilikuwa around 23,000 for the winner. So these are the primaries for DCP. Wapiga kura 23,000 wa chama cha DCP. Huku UDA ikivutia wapiga kura 8,000 pekee. Mshindi wa mchujo wa DCP alizoa kura 12,000 huku wa UDA akipata 3,000 pekee. Hii ikiweka DCP katika nafasi nzuri ya kushinda uchaguzi mdogo ujao. Huo ni uchaguzi mdogo wa Olkalao utafanyika mwezi Julai. Kumbuka kuna uchaguzi mdogo wa Emuru wa Dikir na maeneo mengine madogo madogo hapa na pale, lakini ile ya Olkalao inakaa ni moto zaidi. Kongamano la Afrika Ufaransa na picha ya Emmanuel Macron pale kwenye kurasa wa mbele akiwa pale ikulu ya Nairobi. Pep sasa ni maombi tu, na sioni kama maombi yatamsaidia. Ni habari nyingine pale ya spoti, alikuwa aombe lakini kama maombi haikufika. Alikuwa amesema mpaka yeye ana support West Ham. Pole kwake. Sanamu yamekatilili Shakahola. Shujaa wa vita vya uhuru kukumbukwa kwa namna ya kipekee kaunti ya Kilifi. Mbona Shakahola, lakini sawa tu. Pale juu habari zile zile zinazungumziwa. Dangote awazia kujenga kiwanda Mombasa, ilikuwa kijengwe Tanga, sasa tujui kutaendaje. na masuala ya finance bill. Hakuna nafuu ya ushuru wa mishahara. Serikali ya waruka wa Kenya wa mishahara ya chini baada ya kuahidi nafuu. Tax relief for those earning 30,000 now is a pipe dream. You have to wait for the next finance bill if at all. Na ukumbuke ile next itakuwa election year. Kurasa wa nyuma, Pep sasa ni maombi tu, ameinua mikono yake juu. Ataona moto. Pole sana. Aha. Masuala ya biashara. Gazeti la The Business Daily, delays in closing Safaricom sale gifts Treasury 16 billion shillings. Delays in the sale of government's 15% stake in Safaricom to South Africa's Vodacom in the wake of a suit are on course to gift the Treasury 16.1 billion shillings in dividends. Unakumbuka, wangekuwa washauza, then the government would not have benefited from the recent announcement of profit, 100 billion shillings profit for Safaricom, because people are earning dividends. Wangekuwa washauza, hawangepata. Sasa because wamedelay hapa na pale, hawajauza Safaricom, hiyo dividend inaendea nani? Serikali. 16 billion shillings, just like that. That's a difference. Picha pale ya Macron na mwenyeji wake pale, Republic of Kenya, Republic of Conseil, that one. Nairobi hosts Africa France Summit. Former Scan Group CEO, 6 ouster of firm's board. That is Bharat Thakur, former CEO of WPP Scan Group. On the ticker, Treasury backtracks on income tax cuts, Yuchasema. Cash pay for NCBA owners capped at 7,519 shares. And Gen Z investors build 9 billion shilling stake in Stanchart Asset Fund, where investors below the age of 30 now control 9 billion shillings in Standard Chartered Bank, Kenya's AC Shilingi Fund, signaling the rapid rise of younger savers in sophisticated investment products. Vijana wana pesa bana, bilioni 9. Anyway, hayo ni magazeti ya hapa nyumbani. People Daily talks about state agencies near collapse as losses soar into billions. You'll be shocked. KRA is among those ones. KRA na collect, this is a Business Daily now, the front page of the Business Daily. People Daily rather, sorry. State agencies near collapse. Kenya's tax collector, National Referral Hospital, that's KNH, once seen as pillars in the fight against disease, ignorance and poverty. I'm talking about the People Daily, not Business Daily, People Daily, the front page. Are among parastatals drowning in debt, corruption, waste and chronic management. So nashanga KRA deni wanatoa ya nini? KNH we may understand. Kenya Forest Service pengine. NYS Tourism Board wote wako pale, hawana pesa. People Daily. So from that, let's move on now to regional dailies, tuone wanazungumzia masuala gani. Wengi ambao hawako Kenya, tuanzie Uganda. In Uganda, we take a look at the Daily Monitor now. And on the Daily Monitor, I don't want to be president. They're quoting the president saying, I don't want to be president. The stately cap has become an allure as well as a poison chalice from which a long line of presumptive or declared suitors for the presidency would not want to drink, putting them in sharp focus of succession in the ruling National Resistance Movement, NRM party. Now, they focus on a number of people who possibly could be president. Anita Among anasema hataki hiyo kazi. Sam Kutesa anasema hataki hiyo kazi. Amama Mbabazi hataki kuwa president. Gilbert Bukenya wote hataki hiyo kazi. So nani anataka kuwa president? Lakini nafikiri tu ni sababu Museveni yuko pale. Angekuwa kila mtu angesema nipatie hiyo kazi. That's a Daily Monitor. Ile nyingine ni the East African. The East African, which is a regional paper. This one cuts across more than just one country. The trouble with Uganda's national carrier, still focusing on Uganda. Rolls-Royce engines for the A33 Onios, an expensive total care maintenance package, are straining the airline amid other storms. Ndege zao zinatumia Rolls-Royce engine. Nyemu kitumia Boeing na Rolls-Royce. Headache for East Africa integration. Unakumbuka ile story ya Tanga, sasa inaweza kuja Kenya. Samia Suluhu Hassan alisema ya juu hiyo ni nini, na elewi kwa nini Ruto anazungumzia hayo. Ni kama hataki hiyo biashara. Alright, let's take a look at Tanzanian papers, starting with The Citizen. Why household savings now go into bonds and funds. Tanzanian households are increasingly shifting money from traditional savings accounts into bonds. This is impressive. Mutual funds and other formal investment products pushing the value of household financial assets to 28.77 trillion Tanzanian money by the end of last year. That's the main story there. Kwa Mwananchi, gazeti la Mwananchi, sababu nyingi za talaka ni mizaha. Masuala ya ndoa yamepewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti hili. Mmoja hapa ananukuliwa kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, anasema mimi nakutana na kesi kila siku. Huyu ni Sheikh wa mkoa wa Dar es Salaam. Mtu anasema anataka kumpa talaka mke wake kwa sababu hajampikia. Mwingine analalimikia hafunikiwi blanketi akiwa amelala. Huyu Sheikh anasema hayo si malengo ya ndoa, kupika na kufunikia na blanketi. Unamuoa mwanamke kwa sababu akupikie tu? Ni swali anauliza. Hakuna hilo. Ndoa ina maana kubwa. Fikiria hivyo, ndoa ina maana kubwa. Jana niliona mahali wanasema ati about 524 divorce cases have been filed in one court in Nairobi alone in the past 1 month or so. Habari ni ile ile. Sababu nyingi za talaka ni mizaha hata kule Tanzania. Habari nyingine ni masoko yageuka uwanja wa kelele. Licha ya kuwepo kwa sheria lakini zinapuuzwa, huku mamlaka zikipewa zigo la lawama kutochukua hatua. Ni kama wale wa NEMA, wale wanaangalia masuala ya kelele na pollution. Kule masoko kila mtu ako na spika yake ama kipaza sauti akijaribu kutafuta wanunuzi. Haya ndio masuala yanapewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Mwananchi kule Tanzania. So after taking a look at the regional and local dailies, let's come back home and take a look at the cartoons this morning. Tuone wanaangazia nini. And we start off with the cartoon on the Star. The cartoon on the Star focuses on the finance bill 2026. So a caricature of the CS and the president getting busy discussing the finance bill and planning for the same. This is a cartoon on the Star. Wanaambiana careful, we don't want fresh problems. Lakini meanwhile kuna Gen Z pale kando wanaangalia na wana point fingers, wanasema mnafanya nini hapo? Ni nini iko ndani ya hiyo finance bill? Lakini Gen Z pia nyinyi huwa mnanishangaza. Mbona mzungumzii finance bill? Na vile mlikuwa mmeleta joto hapa, finance bill, reject finance bill. Sasa hii kuna finance bill 2026, mtangoje petition ndo mkuje mseme reject. Bunge imesema between now and 25th, 2 weeks, exactly 2 weeks, go give your written memoranda. And that's on the dailies. Actually, they've paid for that advertisement, full page advertisement. Waki-invite all your comments and opinions about the finance bill. That's a cartoon on the Star. The cartoon on the Standard, hii unajua ni Hari leo, ameleta kizungumkuti hapa. But it's about what's happening globally. Hari, the Standard. So on one side, there's Trump, the US president. On the other side, there's Putin. So Trump says, now I know why you started the fire. Ule mwingine anasema very endearing. So hapa kuna kuni zile vita ambavyo vinaendelea kwingineko, Venezuela, Iran, Ukraine, inatoa moshi mweusi. Unaitwa power. Power ndio shida. So that's why we are trying to start these fires. So President Trump learning from Putin. The Daily Nation. The cartoon on the Daily Nation talks about the DCP party versus UDA. Party nomination fitting room. Mambo ni kumenyana. Vyama vingine vimetulia tu, jezi ziko kule nje. Watu wana change shati, kidogo alikuwa Jubilee, kidogo ni UDA, sasa amevaa DCP. Changing room. Politicians ni wale wanageuza tu majezi. Alikuwa Jubilee akaenda UDA, sako DCP. Party nomination room. All right. And those are the 3 cartoons. The 4th one is the one on the People Daily. Kuna watu wako kule jangwani kama Waisraeli. Israelites. Wanaangalia kiongozi anasema Baba's footprints are leading us to his dreamland. Which dreamland? Is it Canaan? Map yake ni Canaan. Akona map ya Canaan, anafuata footsteps. Alafu wale watu huko nyuma wanakaa kama wana wa Israeli, wanauliza can we trust him? Huyo jamani nani? Mimi ndio Sifuna mwenyewe. That's a cartoon of the People Daily. All right. Once again, a reminder of the weather advisory by Kenya Met Department that we're expecting moderate to heavy rainfall in most parts of the country, especially areas south and central of Kenya, kule northeastern and northern parts. Apart from Turkana, hakutakuwa na mvua sana, lakini central Rift, highlands west of the Rift Valley, Lake Victoria Basin, all expect more than 20 millimeters of rainfall between now and Thursday. And again, the traffic disruption in town, just before we get an update from Muthoni Brenda, Heavy VVIP movement expected along Mombasa, Lang'ata, Thika, Limuru and Kiambu roads, and within the CBD starting midnight. These roads are now closed to traffic. City Hall Way, Parliament Road, Harambee Avenue and Taifa Road. Only conference vehicles accessing KICC will be allowed passage, and the public has been advised to avoid affected areas and follow police directions. All right, so that's a traffic update. And do we have Modoni Brenda on standby now? Oh, yes, indeed, we do have Modoni on standby. Very good morning to you, Modoni. I'm sure there's a lot of activity within the CBD. Bring us up to speed with what you've encountered so far.
A very good morning to you, Fred Indimuli. And yes, Modoni Brenda is on standby. And leo ni ile siku wahenga huwa wanasema Monday blues. But the Monday blues might have something on me, but they have nothing on Nairobians, especially with Nairobi set to play host to one of the mega events happening in Africa this week. Now, Nairobi is hosting the Africa Forward Summit, and of course, with such heavy VVIP presence, traffic is expected to be disrupted in the CBD. We had the GOK give an advisory on Friday where they warned that Harambee Road, Parliament Road and Taifa Road will be closed ahead of this summit. Now, yesterday we saw the France President Emmanuel Macron, we saw the United Nations President Antonio Guterres, and of course with such high-level presence in Dimuli comes a lot of traffic congestion. I don't know if my camera person can pan the cameras just to show you the situation here outside the KICC. Now, the government advisory said that Harambee Road, Parliament Road and City Hall Road will be closed, but today morning traffic marshals has told the TV47 crew that all roads are open apart from the City Hall Road. Now, traffic is expected to be disrupted along Mombasa Road, along Lang'ata Road, along Thika Road, Limuru Road and Kiambu Road, and several sections within the CBD. You can already feel the impact this morning because traffic officers have been deployed all over the CBD. And if I might add, in Dimuli, it was just drizzling a little bit earlier, and we all know how Nairobi gets when it rains. The traffic marshals have told me to advise you, if you're coming into the CBD, you better use alternative routes or plan ahead. Now, that is the situation you've seen. City Hall is closed, but remember, Taifa Road, Harambee Road, all of them are on. Back to you in studio.
Go, of course, you've given us a picture of how the roads are, but how is traffic within the CBD so far? Because most people are used to using these same roads.
Well, I don't know if it is because of the heavy rains or because they followed the traffic advisory, but traffic is not that bumper to bumper here in the CBD. I don't know if Peter can pan behind us just to show you how the entry into the National Archives is looking. It's not that bad. Traffic is not that bad yet, but police have said that when the event is set to begin at 9 a.m., traffic in the CBD might get a little bit crazy. But right now, kama ndio unaingia CBD, you're still on luck. Fred, kama unaweza ona, magari bado hayajaanza kusongamana.
Residents have taken queue. Thank you so much, Modoni Brenda, for that update. City residents have taken queue. Like you can see, even pedestrian traffic is not so bad in those areas that have already been restricted. Only people with access to the KICC, and they need special passes for that, are being allowed. But yes, 6:30 this morning. Actually, it's about 5 minutes past 6:30. And traffic in the city already obeying the laws as directed. Well, that's a traffic situation on major highways within the CBD, major roads. A quick look at the traffic situation elsewhere. On major tributaries into town, and I can see Thika Road is also building up slowly. Jogoo 2, Eastern Bypass is getting busy, as well as Mombasa Road getting into the CBD. So a bit of traffic on major highways, but definitely within the CBD do expect, if at all you can stay without driving into the CBD today, areas around Parliament Road, City Hall Way, Harambee Avenue, Taifa Road, all those roads that form a perimeter around the KICC, are busy this morning. All right. And I can see some of the guests for our State of the Nation discussion are already with us this morning. Josphat Kamanya joining us this morning. Josphat, karibu sana. It's good to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll be getting other panelists. Ikwa Ambote and Rachel Omolo will be joining us. So yes, we'll be discussing quite a number of things. The finance bill, that France-Africa summit, as well as by-election politics. DCP causing quite the chaos in areas like Emuru Dikir and even in Ol Kalou. These are just some of the things we'll be discussing. Do stand by for that. Ikwa Ambote also joining us this morning. Bwana Ikwa, karibu on set, even as we anticipate the arrival of the other panelist. Good morning, karibu sana. Meanwhile, make sure you interact with us through our social media pages, TV47 Kenya on Facebook, on YouTube, where we're streaming live, and on Instagram, and on X, it's TV47 Digital. Use the hashtag TV47 Breakfast, hashtag Story Yetu. You can tag me as well. My handle is at Fred Indimuli. Once again, a reminder of the situation within the CBD as we anticipate a lot of traffic around the KICC, which is hosting the Africa Forward Summit. At least 50 countries represented this summit, 30 African heads of state expected. The French president is already in the country, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also there, and President William Ruto taking advantage to show off his new look state house to these leaders. But yes, the CBD mutakipata leo. Chungeni sana. Parliament Road, Haile Selassie Avenue imefunguliwa lakini itasumbukana leo. Harambe Avenue, Taifa Road and City Hall Way have been closed to traffic.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning.
You have my rent?
Leo jioni kama tutakuwa tumelipa rent, nauza hii simu yako.
Hamna pesa. I need 3 G's to make my nails today.
Sasa hii inatuhusu aje?
Can I order now? Do you ship? Can I get blinking ones?
Mimi nilikuwa na trade. Nimewekelea kitele yangu. Kitele yangu na trade. Ikikunywa maji.
Oh my God. He left me. Nitumie ni line.
Uko nje kuna wifi.
Why? Hi-Fi?
Wait, so what do we call this dish again?
I have no idea.
The cucumbers are there specifically for my beauty routine.
Tamulini kero umeka kwa beauty product.
Na ameenda.
Tunafaa tukuwe na logo yetu. Like, si ni brand already. We won't entertain divas.
No. I'm not dealing with a man child.
Amazing. Nishapenda hii energy.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47.
All right, good morning and welcome back. This is TV47 Breakfast. My name is Fred Indimuli. Time for us to take a look at the dailies. Of course, the biggest discussion in and around the CBD, Nairobi, is about the Africa-France Summit. France-Africa Summit is called also the Africa Forward Summit. It's happening today and tomorrow at the KICC. Over 30 heads of state from Africa and 50 governments represented at this summit. And for the first time, it's being held in Anglophone Africa and not in Francophone Africa. This is what President William Ruto promised, that if it's a summit about Africa, then it happens in Africa. Not a summit about Africa happening in France or Russia. All right, I'd introduce my panelists this morning, Ikwa Ambote and Josphat Kamanya. Good morning, karibuni sana.
Asante.
At least one promise. Many people have criticized President William Ruto on some of his pronouncements. He says these things, they don't happen. But this one has happened. The France-Africa Summit is finally happening in Kenya. Not Francophone Africa, not anywhere in Europe. A plus?
Well, thank you, Fred, and a very good morning to you and our viewers. I would only say it's a plus to the hospitality industry that is currently hosting all the delegates that are coming into town, and probably to a very small extent into our foreign exchange earning. But further from that, I do not have any reason to celebrate this particular conference, owing to the fact that I know it's coming at a time when France has been falling out with its former colony, what we call the Francophone countries, from Burkina Faso to Mali and things like that. And we know what is happening. So basically, whenever I see France, come in and trying to, try and portray the friendship and things like that, there's a lot of questions. In Africa, whenever you find all these, foreign countries coming into your country and finding it as a destination for many things, there is something they have seen. I can guarantee you, Fred, whenever France have, looked at an opportunity to have this hosted in Kenya, at a point when we know all those countries, actually the French-speaking countries, did not even vote for Raila Odinga when we wanted him to go to the AU. There is a lot of questions that need answers, other than just what I would call the optics of us hosting this particular event. Nevertheless, it's a good event to happen in our country, especially on the hospitality side. And we have a lot to discuss about this, and especially on the intent that is necessarily not on paper and on camera. Because definitely, without any doubt, two things that I can mention before I hand it over back to you. It's coming at a point where we have already passed our privatization bill, and a lot of discoveries in terms of minerals, and Kenya is completely virgin in terms of untapped mineral utilization and mining thereof. When the French military was leaving Burkina Faso, the last consignment of them were arrested with a lot of gold that they were trying to smuggle out of the country, which summarized their intention. As a country, French has a bigger economy than nearly all African countries combined, which has been predominantly built on reserves and many other foreign policies that they have with those French-speaking countries, especially those ones that they colonized. So I would look and take this with a pinch of salt, and not celebrate yet until we put a microscope on the intention that is predominantly not put on paper.
Okay, quite some skepticism there. I don't know if Bwana Kamanya, you share in this skepticism. Are you reluctant to load such a summit happening in Kenya?
Well, it's not skepticism. It's a reality that we are living in. One will have to remember that the French, or France, as my colleague says, is looking for a new home in Africa, because they have fallen off in the West, where they have been hosted for a long time, a place where they have built their economy on the backs of Africa, minerals, resources, and many other very extractive mechanisms that they employed on Africa. And now the world is changing, so they have to redefine themselves, they have to rebrand themselves, and then find a new home. You have to remember also they have been begging Kenya to allow them to set up a military camp after they were sent away. So this is not it's not a win for President Ruto. It's not a win for Kenya. It's not a win for Africa. I am not shy to say that France is a major colony of Africa. It has a lot of reserves and a lot of wealth built from Africa. But today, we're in a time whereby we are trying to look at the new path for Africa. How do we cooperate? How do we redefine the relations we have, the bilateral and the multilateral relations we forge with any other country, not just France, because remember there are also many African countries that are coming. So there should be a lot of multilateralism today that will take place in terms of discussion. There should be a lot of policy review. There should be a lot of, when you talk of market, you have to remember that we trade a lot of flowers with France, but then who are the farmers in Africa? Most of them are foreign. Most of them are foreigners. What is the state of the farm workers in those flower farms and many other fresh produce that we send out to France or Europe largely? So I would expect there to be a revision of policy in terms of market and value addition so that we can revamp our own economy. So I'm not very optimistic again, because I do know, I've seen how France plays. They never play fair. And expectedly, because they're there to safeguard their own interest. They know if they fall off with the East African community, they cannot go south. they'll have to exit Africa. And none of the major colonies wants to exit Africa. We've seen France, we've seen UK.
Are we saying there's nothing we stand to benefit in a bilateral, at the bilateral level from France? I know this one will be bigger than that. We will not get enough time to have bilateral talks this time round because it's an African continental issue. Are you saying there's nothing we stand to benefit? I get a lot of skepticism.
You know, one, we have to wait and see what resolutions will come out of it. But largely, France is here to protect its own interests. Why would they want to host an event in Africa? We have I don't know how many presidents coming, major business players, thought leaders coming. Why? You know, there's always the motive. They are not here to do charity or philanthropy for Africa.
Yet we remember it was President William Ruto who said this, who suggested that if at all it's an Africa summit, because previously it was hosted in France, and all heads of state from Africa had to travel to France for an African summit, or go to Russia for an African summit. Having France come to Kenya specifically, to Africa, don't you see that as a win for President Ruto?
I don't know what lens you're looking at this from. I mean, it is obvious that Africans have been taken for a ride for the longest time. And these countries, when they are coming to negotiate anything with us, it is all about them. The take home for them is it's tenfold of what it is that they left on the table for us. I mean, on that particular sentence...
Doesn't that speak to our level of negotiation?
Absolutely.
If we are unable to negotiate better, definitely.
That is where I'm coming. That is where I'm coming, Fred. Allow me to run it. Because I need to tell you that most of our readers, you know, Africa, we've been getting it all along in terms of the guys we elect. For example, Kenya is a politically, managed economy. So, no, we don't set professionals into a negotiation table. We set, what you call politicians. And these politicians, what is the process of electing a politician in Kenya into an office? I mean, who are elected? And these are the guys that we expect to send to go into a table with French professionals to go and negotiate a deal. Are we aware that they carry themselves into the negotiation table other than a country? They never mention the interests of a country. And that's how all these foreign countries have been taking advantage of us. I want to ask you a very simple question that everybody understands. French is seeking to have a military base in Kenya. And I need to ask you, we have, what we call batooks, the British, training and everything here. The American army is here. They have a base somewhere in Manda Bay down at the coast. What have they benefited us with? What have we benefited from? If history is anything for us to go by, look at what is happening within the Middle East. When Iran started, fighting with Israel and America, what have they been doing in Qatar? What have they been doing in UAE? What have they been doing in Bahrain and the countries around there? People who are not involved in that war at all. They had no idea of why they want to fight. But they have been attacking those countries in the name of installations, what we call American installations. So all these installations you're putting here are putting us in the line of fire. But eventual advantage, what I would call advantage, we have nothing to take home for. We have guys in Batooks in Nanyuki. They've been doing crazy things in there, but they have a clause that you cannot prosecute them here. They have to go and be prosecuted at the Queensland in England. How? Who negotiated these things? How do we end up agreeing to be colonized on a paper after our fathers went to the forest and fought for our independence? And by the way, are you aware, all this is what our generation, and I call it from millennials going down to now the Gen Zs and whoever will come after that, cannot agree with. Because we can see through any intention whatsoever. Gone are the days when you would come here with a very heavy worded English document and give it out to someone, then threaten them at the back. We don't even take threats at all. I know for sure when some of these foreign countries are coming, they threaten the presidency. And the reason as why this has been, have been accepted is because in Kenya, it has been regarded that you cannot be president unless you are foreign supported. You have support from certain countries, certain power somewhere. How? How do we allow them to come and influence and, who becomes this, who becomes that? And we've had it from the streets.
Are we saying the level of influence, even the multilateral level, by having the meeting, the summit on African soil, it would be the same as when it happened in Paris?
Well, I see no reason to think differently because At the end of the day, it is the motive, it's the agenda that matters, not the location. This is just merely for optics, you know, to show us that, okay, we are more African, we are more African-centered, but what is the agenda? What the, as he says, the eventual outcome, that is what I'm looking forward to. You know, we've just lost 7 billion to a French farm, you know, regarding the road contract. So we have to ask ourselves as Kenyans, what is in it for us? I like how Trump says, America first. If only Africa acted in the same manner, if only Kenya acted in the same manner, the takeaway from the table would be more meaningful to us as Africans, to us as Kenyans. Okay. Why would there have been such a fallout in the west part of Africa if the French was serving the interest of the Africans at the west part of the continent? But it's because, you know, Traore and many other West African presidents or leaders have realized the extractive mechanism, because at the end of the day, you have to look what is happening. Are they here to empower? And why do they need to empower us? It is mere extraction. Colonialism keeps on taking different shapes and forms. It is also modernized, because today they know they cannot use guns and bombs, but they need us to survive, from food to minerals, and also, labor, human capital. So I don't see any advantage, for a huge advantage, merely for us hosting the event. This is just a location. It's just the venue. I want to see the agenda. I'm very keen to see the pronouncement that will come out of this.
After tomorrow's end to the summit.
Correct.
All right. Enough of the summit, but last week I saw one of the papers talking about President William Ruto's diplomacy. They call it diplomatic gaffes. He's been criticized highly since the first day he got into office. That even while he was still at Kasarani, immediately after taking over, his people had already tweeted something off. And they keep saying that these gaffes continue. Do you see that, especially after the meeting in Tanzania?
Yes.
Are you seeing more of this? Because in the headlines, the main investor in that refinery, Aliko Dangote, is now saying, actually, you should do this thing in Kenya. Yet it's our president who appeared even more keen to have it in Tanzania.
Fred, I mean, by now, every Kenyan knows who we are talking about. When you are referring to the president and what it is that his sentiments, I do not know whether there's a debrief that happens, which I doubt that there's a debrief that happens, because how else would you say that we are discussing to place a refinery in Tanga, whereas the owner of the money, the owner of the investment want to do it in Mombasa and you're sitting in a foreign country? I mean, this has been happening because nobody has accused our president of something he has not done. Let's start there. Everybody who have come up and said, hey, how did you do that? How did you say that? It is actually out of what he has said or done. So there's a lot of gaps out there because, this issue about oil and especially the positioning of that refinery is quite interesting because it is actually, there's something we've lacked as a country. It's called the continuity, building of what have already been done instead of going to the drawing board altogether. We've been losing a lot of investments and planning thereof. You know, when President Kibaki came into power, he actually gave us something called Vision 2030. But in 2012, when President Ruto and President Uhuru came, they didn't take that very seriously because at that particular point, that particular department of Vision 2030 that Professor Mo Kabati were headed was actually taken to the devolution department. They were taken out of what we call the Harambe House and they were taken to a devolution. And that's how it ended. That's how the whole committee was disbanded and everybody went their way. In that particular plan, we had something called the Rapset Corridor. The Rapset Corridor was actually an investment of 4 countries, that is Southern Sudan, Ethiopia, Uganda, and Kenya. That particular Rapset Corridor had an eventual refinery because the speculations of oil and discoveries have already been done in these countries. What have happened since that time? We've not been consistent at all in pursuing that particular dream and plan thereof. And I know there's a lot of money that is being poured and invested within what we call the Rapset Corridor, because Kenya has been doing it solo, but taking it where? Now, when we start talking about the refinery in Tanga, when we have our oil in Turkana, can you explain to me how our oil is going to get to Turkana? To Tanga. Realistically so, you better say things that make sense. When you are talking about something, let it make a lot of sense. We had Uganda diverting their pipeline out of Kenya through Tanzania. Are we following them there? A decision that negatively affected our future plans and strategic location and positioning and we follow them to that particular direction. Why aren't we now sitting down with Southern Sudan, who have not yet done the refinery, Ethiopia thereof, and rediscuss or renegotiate what it is that they could have found that is not good? So all these goofs that you've been seeing the president do, it is out of his own sentiments that do not have a backup back home. You know, when he says something that is headed this direction, and what it is that you expect in home is headed east, how are we going to agree with him?
And it's clearly that there's some level of prematurity in some of these discussions. If at all, yes, there's a discussion about a possible refinery. Then he goes and talks about it in Tanzania. The president there said, we've not discussed this. Then 2 days later, the main investor says, actually, I'm more leaning on Mombasa. What does it mean? Is our president too excited when it comes to diplomatic
You see, Mr. Dangote initially wanted to make that investment in Kenya. That is on record. But due to contract brokerage, he said there is no way he can come to Kenya because of the terms. And that's how he moved to Tanzania. That is also on record. Now, I think our president is trying to renegotiate and endear himself to the deal. So that's a political blunder, you know, because again, you do not stress an investor unnecessarily before the initial phase. I mean, at any time at all. But then when they relocate, you realize you are losing more interest, and then you want to bring them back. So look at the conversation we are having. How did the president blunder like that? Again, we just sold our KPC. We are talking about refinery. The KPC is a major infrastructure. It's a very strategic project for every country to have. Whether it makes money or not, you need it. We sold ours to Uganda, but we hear there are proxies of the president and other business people in Kenya. So that was a blunder, but I like that Dangote is in town. He should be, or rather, he should be in town for the summit, and maybe there will be a pronouncement from that. We will see. However, the political gaffes you speak of, the president has a tendency of making the wrong choices of words, of commitment, of alliance. Look at the war between Ukraine and Russia. Where did he go? He went to Ukraine. Look at the war between Israel and Palestine. Where did he go? He went to Israel. Look, we have fallen off with South Sudan. We've fallen off with Congo. Now we had a fallout sometime with Tanzania because there's a tiff. Kenyans are not, you know, agreeable to especially the pronouncement of Amri Jeshi Mkuu wa Jirani, Mama Suluhu, who attacked our constitution. I feel personally that the president ought to have stood up for our constitution and pronounced himself that Kenya is different. We are led by a constitution, Article 37, 35, that talks about freedom of expression. He ought to have defended our constitution when Mama Suluhu said, wachapa wao viboko venye, nitachapa pande hii. So he's been falling off. You know, he had a very good relationship with South Africa for a long time, but his allegiance with Israel, and he knows South Africa is very strong on the Palestinian freedom, also puts us at crossroads. So all this international image of Kenya has been dwindling or tainted since 2022 when the president took over. There are a lot of blunders he has made. We'll have a lot of work to do to salvage our image and improve on our relations. I don't know how his communication departments look like, as my friend says, whether there's any discussion or debriefing or messaging, because it is very key when you go out as a president to understand that you are not speaking from your opinion or your emotions. You are expressing a national position, which you may not agree with. But you have to be very careful what you speak, because you're the symbol. You're the first ambassador of our country. So when you go and misrepresent the larger feelings of our country, that is not good performance.
Yes, it is there on the front page of the Daily Nation. Tanga or Mombasa, the main investor, Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote, now says he's looking at Kenya as a site of the 650,000 barrel a day oil refinery. His announcement coming days after Tanga in Tanzania was also touted as a location for the project that he plans to build in East Africa. Mama Samia alisema yeye ajui hiyo maneno. Anyway, meanwhile, President William Ruto is playing host to over 50 leaders of different governments at the Africa Forward Summit, which begins officially today and tomorrow. The summit is bringing together over 30 African heads of states, global institutions and private sector leaders. Government spokesman Isaac Mwaura has said the discussions will focus on investment, innovation, climate financing and reforms to the global financial system. And this meeting comes ahead of France's G7 presidency, which is also expected to boost Kenya's role in shaping Africa's development agenda and attract investment in energy infrastructure and digital technology. This is what is going to be discussed inside. For many people in the city, they're just concerned about the traffic. Harambee Avenue, Parliament Road, City Hall Way, Taifa Road are all closed to traffic. Only those attending the summit at KICC will be allowed access, and they have to have special passes for that. Meanwhile, members of the public have been asked to avoid those areas and obey police directions on where else they can go in as far as access to other areas in the CBD. Time for us to take a break. TV47 Breakfast will be back in a moment.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m.
Good morning.
You have my rent?
Leo jioni kama tutakuwa tumelipa rent, nauza hii simu yako. Hamna pesa.
I need 3 G's to make my nails today.
Sasa hivi natuhusu aje?
Can I order now? Do you ship? Can I get blinking ones?
Mimi nilikuwa na trade. Nimewekelea kitele yangu. Kitele yangu na trade. Ikikunyuma.
Oh my God. He left me. Nitumie ni live.
Uko nje kuna wifi.
Why? Hi-Fi?
Wait, so what do we call this dish again?
I have no idea.
The cucumbers are there specifically for my beauty routine.
Tamulini kero umeka kwa beauty product.
Na ameenda.
Tunafaa tukuwe na logo yetu. Like, si ni brand already.
We won't entertain divas.
No. I'm not dealing with a man child.
Amazing. Nishapenda hii energy.
Sundays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Saturday at 8:30 p.m.
My father used to tell me that our hotel is the home for travelers. I guess I forgot that. Recently, it's been more of a mirror of my own ambition. Ooh, yeah. We might fail. We will probably fail, but not for a lack of trying. So for the last time, and the first time, welcome to Connect In, the best experience in Eastern Central Africa and its environs.
Saturday at 8:30 p.m. on TV47. Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m.
This is a very serious place.
I see that. Surely. Hey, Nyumba.
This is the place.
Just for a few days.
Rule number 2.
Kwani Google inajua maisha yangu wewe?
That's my seat.
It's a chair. It was hers.
You're new here?
Yes.
You learned the rhythm.
This place is run by structure. Structure.
It is a system. Ni venye tu ni system haisikizi.
And what happens if something you haven't chosen enters your day?
I remove it.
That's not always going to be possible here.
Then you are going to have a problem.
Noted.
What are you planning? To escape from a resort?
This is not a resort, my friend. This is a storage.
Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. on TV47.
Nairobi, where the hustle never sleeps and neither do the scammers.
Link Up, we are talking about something that's affecting all of us. We are talking trust.
We're diving into the campus life.
Stay fresh, stay safe.
Stay linked up.
My father used to tell me that our hotel is the home for travelers. I guess I forgot that. Recently, it's been more of a mirror of my own ambition. Ooh, yeah. We might fail. We will probably fail, but not for a lack of trying. So for the last time, and the first time, welcome to Connect In, the best experience in Eastern Central Africa and its environs.
This is a very serious place.
I see that. Surely. Hey, Nyumba.
This is the place.
Just for a few days.
Rule number 2.
Kwani Google inajua maisha yangu wewe?
That's my seat. It's a chair.
It was hard.
Welcome back and good morning once again. You're watching TV47 Breakfast. This morning it's quite busy, especially in the city, with Kenya hosting the Africa Forward Summit, or if you like, the France Africa Summit at the KICC. President Emmanuel Macron of France is here. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is also here, alongside 30 African heads of state and other leaders representing their governments and other big organizations. And so quite a number of roads within the CBD have been closed to traffic, majorly Harambee Avenue, Parliament Road, City Hall Way and Taifa Road. And that is the news that will keep on updating you on, because it will definitely cause some traffic problems in the CBD. Show of might, they call it, as Kenya hosts this summit that many I would have expected would have gone to a francophone country. But away from that, the other story given prominence on the front pages today is matters to do with the finance bill, and I want us now to go to that. In the dailies today, the National Assembly has paid up an advertisement full-page ad. On the Daily Nation, it's on page 9, where the National Assembly is now inviting people, Kenyans, to submit their memoranda in as far as the finance bill is concerned. And they say any written memoranda on the bill should indicate the name of the person or organization submitting it and their contact details, and should be delivered to the office of the clerk, first 4 main parliament buildings, or emailed to CNA, that's Clerk of National Assembly, at parliament.go.ke, and Finance Committee NA, that's the National Assembly, at parliament.go.ke, to be received on or before Monday 25th, meaning you have exactly 2 weeks to give your memoranda, written or otherwise, on the finance bill, the provisions of the finance bill. Remember, 2 years ago, the finance bill was born of a lot of debate with the Gen Z protests and the hashtag reject finance bill. 2 years later, we're looking at this. The Daily Nation has broken down some of the issues in the finance bill and highlighted the fact that what Treasury CS John Buddy had promised, the pledge that some relief, including raising the tax-free salary band from 24,000 to 30,000, meaning that anyone earning 30,000 and below would not be required to pay, is missing from the Finance Bill 2026. My biggest concern, and allow me to welcome onto the panel Meshach Odede, who's a public policy analyst and also a political analyst. Karibu sana, Meshach.
Thank you.
My biggest concern is the level of discourse on the finance bill this year. That while for the past 2 years, this has been one of the biggest discussions this time round, people do not appear that excited. I don't know where this lethargy is coming from. Is it because that they saw that even with all that hulabaloo, the government still managed to pass some of the provisions of the finance bill 2024 in different ways, that people know hata tukipiga kelele sana, nothing much will change? Could that be the reason?
Thank you, Fred. Allow me to come to that, but just make one comment on the summit as I come to that. I saw things. I saw the Prime Cabinet Secretary yesterday on one of our national televisions, and everything looks great in terms of content, who is supposed to be there and all that. But now, just one question I kept asking myself. France-Africa Summit, Russia-Africa Summit, US-Africa Summit, India-Africa Summit, Japan-Africa Summit. Everybody has agenda for Africa except Africans themselves. Because rarely do we see Africa calling themselves on the table, other than the normal AU sessions that usually will be there. When did we ever hear that Africa has called themselves, the corporates, the organizations, the governments, every sector of economy of Africa, is sitting down to just strategize, talk, agree, take one position, common position on agenda that is for the interest of Africa. Because when you talk about France-Africa Summit, last time I was here, I told you, there's always a common rule. When you get into the deal, find out who the fool in the deal is. If you can't see one, you are the fool in that deal. So Africa, I am not sure whether Africa has found out who the fool in the deal is with this Russia-Africa Summit, France-Africa Summit. Everybody has got agenda they want to do with Africa, except Africa themselves having agenda for themselves. Why is it so difficult for Africa to just gather its people and all their sectors of economy and sit down and take a position? If it is something around climate, take a position by yourself, not France gathering us, not Russia gathering us, not US gathering us, or any other big economy. Maybe that is what is bothering me. Other than that, everything looks great because everybody who gathers Africa have got serious agenda, everything that looks really good. When we are talking about, I saw the Prime Cabinet Secretary talking about signing around 11 tools. It sounds great, sounds perfect. Some of them will help us decongest the city, evacuate 30,000 people within 1 hour. Looks great, sounds great, but must France be the one gathering us to discuss that? Why can't we sit down by ourselves as Africa and discuss that and say, this is it, and agree that on this we are going to look for France now to actually help us? Other than the French who have twisted it a little to call it Africa Forward, it looks like in this deal, France has nothing. They are just looking for Africa because the summit is actually Africa Forward. Who is the fool in the deal? That is what I would still ask.
All right.
Other than that, others will call it Russia Africa, US Africa, India Africa, Japan Africa, and all that. But this time, it is also being held in Africa. Another twist, because every other time, our president usually flies to Russia, Japan, or wherever. But because one of them complained in one of the last summits, now the French have decided, let's take it to Africa, and actually tried to even bring it to Anglophone so that it looks so neutral, so no agenda for French, except Africans. Now coming to your question, the finance bill. The reason why I think sometimes it might not have brought the kind of heat it has brought in the past 2 years, financial years, could be 2 reasons, and it could be on different sides of the aisle. One, I think from 2024, the government became so cautious around this thing called finance bill, because before it had never created the kind of heat it created, and it was almost going to be the agenda for the entire Africa, because when that day happened in Kenya, a week after that, there were so many young people across Africa raring to go for their parliaments across. Ghana was one of them, and a few other countries here and there within the region. It was almost going to take the route Arab Springs took in the Northern Africa at some point in many years back. So it became a thing to actually look at. And I think from there, the government has been so cautious about how they handle the finance bill. Remember, in 2025 now, we didn't have the kind of political rhetorics and chest thumpings that were there in 2023 and then 2024. Remember, in 2023, there were even politicians who went over the roof of the cars and say, mine is to tell you and pay you. You just come, I tell you what I want and pay you. Remember, in those days, there were politicians who even said, not even a comma will change. It doesn't matter what you people think. So that kind of bravado, chest thumping went after the 2024 finance bill. And now 2025 was again handled a bit much better, and there were more consultations. If I remember, the CS body went even into the villages like Kibra to actually discuss and open up to get the views of the Kenyans and discuss and agree on what can work and what might not work. Again, the memorandums that were taken before the committee were looked at more serious than the way they were looking at those memorandums before. So I think on the side of government, there was some calm, there was some climbing down to actually take into consideration what Kenyans think and what Kenyans want about the finance bill. But on the side of the people, again, there was a hitch after the 2024 finance bill because it metamorphosized without clear reasons from finance bill to Ruto must go to many other things, to one term now. So some people have not been able to connect these things because they look legitimate. But again, when you look at the history from where we sit and how politics have been done in this country, you realize there were a lot more of politics than just the finance bill. Because again, when the president tried to stand strong, he was defeated. He threw out the whole thing. He took the cabinet home. He did all that he needed to do to actually show. But still, the call was sustained. So there were also more, because again, even the human rights activists are now later on coming out and saying what they were trying to do, it actually came out to look like change of regime was happening without democratic processes. And so that is why the normal population of Kenyans, yes, they have issues with a few things in the bill, but again, some of them sit and says no. The bill, yes, we need 1, 2, 3 to be rectified. But the call is something else. It looks like there's another fool in this deal where we are talking about finance bill.
But Bonaikwa, yes. Okay, before I come to you, Bonaikwa, because we have Brenda Muthoni on the streets also discussing this issue about the finance bill. Let's join Muthoni. Muthoni, good morning once again. In as far as this discussion about the finance bill, what are people saying?
A very good morning to you once again, Fred Indimuli. I'm coming to you live from the heart of CBD here at the Kenya National Archives. Behind me is the Bunge la Mwananchi, and these people have proved to be TV47's favorite partner. Tukitaka to any insight, because let me tell you, these people are so well versed in the Constitution. They have already started their motions for the morning. Habari ya wanabunge. Yeah, and before we even get to the finance bill discussion, Fred, the Bunge la Mwananchi motion debate here was ongoing, and I'd like to ask the select committee chair, Mr. Kiria, to just take us through. Leo Bunge la Mwananchi, mlikuwa mna discuss kuhusu nini? Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Asante sana. This morning, here we are discussing 3 main motions. One is umaarufu wa vyama hivi viwili, vyama chama cha ODM na chama cha UDA. Je, umaarufu zao katika maeneo ambazo wamekuwa wakikita mizizi sana, je, inadidimia? Pili, tunaangalia finance bill. Lakini tumechukua mkondo wa kwamba tumeona katika hiyo finance bill kuna proposal kwamba the fuel levy, which is 25%, 5% of it the government wanasema kwamba wanatenga kando, na wanatenga kando wakitumia katika kulipa deni, lakini hawajaweka wazi kwamba ni mbona wanafanya hivyo. Kwa hivyo hayo yanatutatiza kidogo kama wananchi, na tungalipenda sana kuelewa na kufafanuliwa vizuri, hasa tukizingatia kwamba Mheshimiwa Senator Okiya Omtata hivi majuzi katika bunge alieleza bayana wazi kabisa kwamba Kenya haina deni ya kulipa. Deni ambazo zimechukuliwa pale awali zilikuwa ni deni ambazo hazikutufaidi. Manake hazikuja katika miradi ambazo zingetufaidi, lakini zilienda katika mifuko za wenyewe. Na kingine ambacho tunaangalia ni kwamba summit, the African Nairobi Summit, the Africa France Nairobi Summit. Tukizingatia kwamba France imebanduliwa kutoka West Africa ambao walikuwa wamecolonize, na wamekuja sasa, wanakuja katika hii summit. Tunauliza, je, mambo fiche gani ambayo yako katika masuala haya? Hasa tukizingatia kwamba tena kabla hata hawajafika kuna 7 agreements ambazo ni kana kwamba zimekuwa agreed upon. So that is where we are. So this morning, we welcome you once again.
Thank you. Na pengine nikuulize Bwana Select Committee Chair, hizi finance bills zingine, for example finance bill 2025, 2024, tulikuwa tunaona kwamba inaleta msisimko kwa Wakenya. Wakenya walikuwa wanataka sana kujua huu mswada unasema nini, huu mswada how will it affect me as a Kenyan. But with this finance bill ya hii mwaka, Wakenya ni kama hawana shughuli na huu mswada. Kwa nini?
I think not yet. We don't write Kenyans off.
Okay.
Hawajasoma. Na Kenyans huwa tunafanyanga mambo zetu last minute. I'm very sure kwamba as we go to June, as we near, we will see. Because saizi mimi ninafahamu kwamba Wakenya wengi wanasoma na wanajaribu kuelewa. Lakini bado tutaona debate ambayo itakuwa ni very lively katika mambo haya yote. Pengine Mheshimiwa Clark pia anaweza akachangia.
Alright, habari yako Mheshimiwa Clark?
Hujambo?
Si jambo kabisa.
Kwa jina naitwa Alex Otunga, almaarufu Mageuzi. Naam. Natumai ya kwamba unataka nieleze zaidi, labda watu wananchi wa Kenya waweze kufahamu kuhusu mswada wa fedha kwa kurejelea bajeti ya mwaka wa 2025-26. Jambo ambalo Wakenya wanastahili kuelewa ni kwamba msisimuko ambao Wakenya walikuwa nao mwaka 2024 haujabadilika bado. Kwa sababu iwapo kuna mswada ambao unatoa mapendekezo na haya mapendekezo yatawafinya Wakenya, iwanyang'anye hela zao kutoka mfukoni, ni mswada ambao Wakenya hawatapenda. Na ndio utapata ya kwamba awali pale Wakenya wengi hasa vijana walisimuka kwa sababu ule mswada ulikuwa ni kuwadhulumu Wakenya na serikali haikujali Wakenya. Tunaporejelea mswada wa sasa wa fedha, tukirejelea bajeti ya mwaka huu, utapata kwamba kuna mambo mawili makuu ambayo hasa yanawafinya Wakenya. Jambo la kwanza, waziri wa fedha Bwana Mbadi hawali pale alikuwa ametueleza kwamba serikali itawapatia Wakenya afueni. Itakuwa ni afueni ya aina gani? Ya kwamba wale ambao, kwa sababu wale ambao wanalipa ushuru kuanzia shilingi 24,000 kurudi chini, kuanzia 24,000 kwenda juu wanalipa ushuru na yale matoka mengine ya serikali ya kifedha. Lakini akasema kwamba serikali sasa itafanya namna gani? Itaongeza mpaka shilingi 30,000. Wale ambao wanapata shilingi 30,000 kurudi chini, they will be exempted, hawatakuwa wanalipa. Na hayo nadhani alikuwa anazungumza hayo kwa sababu alikuwa ameona Wakenya walikuwa wamechemka. Lakini kwa sasa ukipiga msasa ule mswada ambao unatoa mapendekezo, upekuzi ambao tumeufanya ni kwamba sasa Wakenya ambao wanalipa ushuru mpaka kuanzia 30,000 kurudi chini hawatakuwa exempted, bado wataendelea kulipa ule ushuru. Kwa hivyo kumaanisha kwamba waziri wa fedha kwa niaba ya serikali alidanganya Wakenya. Na lazima serikali inapopanga mipangilio yake ya kifedha lazima ije na sera ambazo zitaokoa Mkenya. Alafu jambo lingine ambalo pia tumeona ni la kuudhi ni kwamba tunaangalia hii hatua ya serikali ya kutenga fedha fulani kutoka kwa ile ambayo tunasema ni fuel levy. Kuna ushuru ambao unatozwa kwa mafuta. Ushuru huu Wakenya waelewe ya kwamba ni ushuru ambao unatumiwa na serikali kukarabati barabara kote nchini, hasa serikali za kaunti na hata kama ni jiji. Kwa hivyo iwapo zile fedha zitatengwa, ina maana ya kwamba barabara zitatengenezwa wakati zimeharibika hapa na pale. Lakini tumepata kwamba awali Wakenya waelewe ya kwamba kwa kawaida sheria inasema 25%, 25 shillings on every liter you buy inaenda kwa serikali kwa ushuru wa mafuta. Sasa hizo shilingi 25 serikali ilikuwa imesecuritize shilingi ngapi? Shilingi 7. Ilikuwa tayari ishatenga awali shilingi 7. Na hizo ni pesa nyingi. Na Wakenya hawakujua. Sasa hivi tena imekuja imeongezea shilingi 5. Kwa hivyo kumaanisha kwa shilingi 25 zile ambazo Wakenya watakuwa wananunua mafuta, shilingi 12 zimetengwa na serikali na hawajatuambia itafanya nini. Na tayari tukiangalia ule ushuru ambao serikali imepata kwa mafuta, ikuwe ni ya ndege, ikuwe ni ya magari na kadhalika, na mafuta ya tuseme na pia reli, serikali inapata kama shilingi bilioni 350. Kwa hivyo hizi hela tayari serikali imechukua shilingi bilioni 160 na imelipa madeni. Wanatueleza kwamba wamelipa kandarasi, lakini hawatuelezi wamelipa nani. Kwa hivyo kumaanisha Wakenya wataendelea kuumia. Kwa sababu serikali ingetumia hela hizi vizuri, kile ambacho ingefanya ni kwamba ingeenda pale iseme ya kwamba kwa sababu kuna tatizo la mafuta, serikali imetoa pesa fulani kulipia Wakenya kwa niaba ya Wakenya ili bei ya mafuta irudi chini. Bei ya mafuta ikirudi chini, maisha ya mwananchi itakuwa nini? itakuwa sawa. Lakini sasa tutaendelea kulipa kwa sababu serikali ina ari ya kupata hizo pesa, lakini shida ni kwamba hatujui hizi pesa zinapochukuliwa zinaenda wapi, na kama inalipa madeni, kwa nini madeni haya Wakenya hawawezi kujua, na kwa nini wanaficha? Hilo ndilo tatizo. Kwa hivyo, kwa ufupi, mswada wa fedha wa mwaka 2025-26 kabla hata tutaupiga msasa wote, tayari tumeona makosa mawili makubwa sana. Na kile ambacho naweza nikuahidi ni kwamba sisi tuko radhi na tuko tayari na tuko ngangari. Tutaupiga msasa, tutauelewa, kisha tutaeleza Wakenya kwamba hili na hili na hili na hili na hili halistahili. Na kama Mbadi hawezi kurudi chini aenda arekebishe, tunamwambia kabla asome bajeti, tutakuwa na maandamano makubwa sana katika hili taifa, kwa sababu hatuwezi kubali serikali kuendelea kudhulumu. Tutakuwa na maandamano kubwa zaidi kuliko yale mwaka 2024.
Na pengine niulize, kwa manake najua wewe ushapiga msasa huo mswada wa fedha, ni jambo gani ambalo umeona limependekezwa na unaunga mkono? Is there something positive that you have seen in the 2025-2026 financial budget?
Nimeona kwamba serikali imetenga pesa, imeongeza pesa ambazo zinastahili kutumiwa na Wizara ya Elimu kuajiri walimu katika kile kitengo ambacho tunasema permanent basis, lakini wamesema kwamba hilo litafanyika baada ya mwaka mmoja, kwa sababu pia sheria haikubali kwamba mtu afanye kazi kwa kandarasi kwa miaka miwili, vile ambavyo tunaona kwamba kuna interns who are working, lakini wanasema kwamba baada ya mwaka mmoja sasa wataajiri hao walimu katika vile vitengo vya kudumu. Sasa hilo naona kwamba ni swala ambalo naweza kusema kwamba sio swala baya, ni swala nzuri. Pia kidogo kuna masuala ya Wizara ya Kilimo, kwamba vile serikali inanuia kutenga fedha zaidi ili kuokoa wakulima upande wa kununua mbolea na vitu vingine, lakini hatuna uhakika kama litafanyika, kwa sababu walitueleza hivyo, lakini mbolea yenyewe ikija, ile bei ambayo serikali imesema sio ile bei ambayo inauzwa. Wanasema ni shilingi 2,500, lakini ukienda kwa duka wanakuuzia 3,800. Sijui kama litatimika, lakini bado tunaendelea. Masuala yatapokuja yote hewani na yatakuwa in the public domain, tutapiga msasa na tutaendelea kuwafahamisha Wakenya. Naam.
Asante sana. Kenyans love your robust feedback sana. Sijui kama huo unasoma their comments on our YouTube channel. Nitakuonyesha after this. With me here is the bunge la mwananchi na chairman. Kwa huo mswada, Treasury is proposing that the house rent levy itoke kutoka 7.5% to 10%. Na hii inamaanisha kwamba some landlords wataamua, kama bedsitter in Nairobi ulikuwa unalipa 7,500, landlord atasema hii tax tutagawana mimi na wewe, meaning rent prices in Nairobi could go up. Maoni yako ni gani?
Asante sana, karibu sana kwa hii bunge letu la mwananchi.
Asante.
Kulingana na hilo jambo la tax, in the first place, natakana wananchi tuelewe, wakati hizi hela zinapotolewa kwa wananchi, zinatusaidia namna gani? Unajua, kuna ile tax ambayo inalipwa ya affordable housing. Na kulingana na mwananchi wa kawaida, sisi tunaona ya kwamba hii hela ambayo inachukuliwa na serikali, kuna vile inafanya ambayo mwananchi afurahi. Kwa sababu kwa saa hizi mimi nakatwa hiyo 2.5% ya housing levy. I'm not sure kama hiyo nyumba nitaipata. Na vile tunasema serikali ingeweka mikakati ambapo ya kwamba hata hizi hela zinapochukulia kuwe na mpango kwamba vile zinaweza kusaidia mwananchi wa kawaida. Kwa ile wanasema kuongeza ni kwamba kinaga ya kwamba wataongeza ushuru, na hiyo landlord unasema pia atapandisha bei juu. Na akishapandisha bei juu ya nyumba, yani kodi ya nyumba, mwenye anaenda kuumia ni nani? Ni mwananchi wa kawaida. Na kwa saa hizi tuliambia serikali inataka kufanya affordable housing. Kitu wangefanya mandhari ya kufanya biashara, kujenga kama hizi manyumba zikiwe chini. So hata kama mimi naweza kujijengea nyumba bila kutegemea serikali. Kwa sababu kwa saa hizi tukiangalia ni wananchi wengi sana, hizi pesa zitachukulia kweli, lakini ni wachache ambao watafanya watafaidika. So sisi tungesi serikali iangalie kwanza chenye tutaka kufanya kitafaidi huyu mtoto mwenye mchanga ako chini, because now if you look in our Kenyan politics or economy, tumeangalia kwamba yule mtu anafaidi sana ni yule tayari ako wapi? Juu. Ukianda saa hizi hata ukiangalia wananchi, ukiangalia nyuso zao, ukiangalia hali yao ya kimaisha imeshuka chini kwa sababu ya kodi ambayo kila wakati inaongezwa na serikali. Okay, ndaongelea jambo ingine kidogo kuhusu mambo ya vyama.
Hapana, kwa sababu pale in studio the panelists wanaongelelea the finance bill, but we can always come back to that discussion later. For now, wacha nisikie maoni yako. So in this proposed finance bill, KRA imepewa data access, meaning KRA can access your bank accounts and your M-Pesa bila necessarily kwenda kuchukua court order. Maoni yako ni gani?
Kwanza kwa majina naitwa Regan Buluku. Na mambo ya KRA kupeana authority kwa access my M-Pesa account, it's very wrong kwa sababu hama tajiri they are using as mostly kulipa their bills. Kulipa their bills. Like for instance, kuna kulipa stima, kulipa maji, like where I'm working. I'm the one who is paying all the bills. Now they're more than like 70,000 per month. So wakiassess wataanza kwamba my salary is increasing while mimi mshahara yangu haifiki kule. So maybe I will be taxed more on that. Nitakuwa naangaliwa pesa yangu inakatwa mingi na of which si zangu. So kukupena data of transaction ya M-Pesa yangu, it's very wrong. Whereby kila mtu privacy yake ya account. Na maybe hata before wakue tax, ilikuwa tax, lazima wakuje kwangu angalie. First of all angalie my salary. Is it worth ile transaction zangu? Maybe hata zingine I'm not doing any business. Lakini mimi I'm only paying bills on behalf of the company. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Fred Ndimuli. Oh, we can also check mwingine yako na a view on the finance bill before we finish. Just one last opinion.
Thank you, madam. Jana ilikuwa Mother's Day. Welcome to Mbunge.
Thank you.
And I'll start with a challenge. I'll start challenging you as a media house, because it's a bunge. Don't make it a campaign.
No, but okay.
Let me go on. We allocate each person a time so that you can collect views our Kenya.
Sawa, and today now the microphone is on you. So kindly tell me your opinions on the finance bill tukimaliza.
Finance bill, very simple. First of all, nataka kuwa very simplistic. Unajua hii maneno ya kizungu mingi we become official, that's why we miss it. Finance bill iliyopita ilikuwa ina tax mwananchi, the government finance their dream project. Mwananchi akalia juu ya tax. The current finance bill mwananchi ajataksiwa, ajarediwa so much na wajaisoma na tuijue. That's the difference.
Kwa hivyo tuwape time wananchi wapitie huu mswada.
Of course, kama walikuwa na teta ile ingine na hii wajascrutinize. What is your worry as a Kenyan? Because I'm speaking like a true patriotic Kenyan. Tuambiane ukweli, tuache officialdom. Kizungu ndio official language. National language. Ikiwezekana the media house, go down there and interrogate mwananchi wa Kenya anasema nini.
Wewe unasema nini? Ndio maana tumekuja kwako. Wewe ni mwananchi wa Kenya ama namna gani? Wewe unasema nini? Tukupe time uscrutiny kuhusu the finance bill.
The finance bill. Tuliona finance bill.
Umepitia kwanza. Umesoma huo mswada?
Sijapitia. Huo mswada bado is yet to come to the public domain for Kenyans to interrogate it.
All right. Thank you so much. Well, Ndimuli, the discussions here at Bunge la Mwananchi can get a little bit heated sometimes, but umesikia Wakenya wengi wanasema hawajapatana na mswada huu, hawajaweza kupiga msasa, lakini Bunge la Mwananchi wamesema wako huo mswada hautapita kama hawajausoma na wa come down to the grassroots and to tell Kenyans what exactly is in that finance bill. Back to you, Fred Ndimuli.
Thank you so much, Muthoni Brenda, doing a great job there, talking to the Bunge la Mwananchi at Archives in the Nairobi CBD for their views on the finance bill and other issues. Thank you so much for that. And you can actually see Kenyans are really well informed. The media is also trying, and some of the highlights of the finance bill here, like the rate of rental income tax overall raised from 7.5 to 10%. Locally assembled and manufactured mobile phones now subject to 16% VAT. Of course, there's a 5% tax on mitumba and shoes that we've talked a lot about. There's excess duty on mobile phones at 25%. And then there's the small brewers to pay the full excess duty of 22 shillings 50 cents per centiliter of pure alcohol. These are just some of the highlights. Of course, the promised salary relief not mentioned anywhere, but I can see someone telling me, Bruce Martin Lee anasema, the last time I checked on Feb, Mbadi said the exemption did not need a finance bill nor parliament to implement. Ati cabinet had approved it. I don't know if cabinet can approve that. Dennis Ogola says, whether we support or not, it has already been decided. There's nothing we can do about it. And that's the lethargy I was talking about. And probably that blasé feeling that, hii hakuna mahali inaenda. And Magipendo said, no, let them take away housing levy and reduce tax for all employees. Bwana Ikua, these are just some of the highlights. But it's the quality of discourse that even the way people are talking about it at the Bunge la Mwananchi level, we are yet to get that enthusiasm to discuss finance bill, even the budget appropriations bill. Yet Parliament is already asking people to come with their memorandum in the next 2 weeks, talk about it. Why do you feel that this time around we are not as excited to talk about this thing?
Well, thank you. And first I need to commend the rise of the Bunge Mwananchi and the quality that we are getting there. Nevertheless, the attention that the country is giving to the comments that are coming from those bunges is quite commendable. This is where you get to feel and get to interact with the real feelings of people. But of course, have you realized that the level of discussions, the level of interrogations that are happening at that very level, it's the highest you can ever imagine. Mm-hmm. So that creates the picture and gives you the reality of what Kenyans are, how they are interrogating and how they are looking at all this. Okay, on your question in regards to Finance Bill 2025, 2026, 2027, I can tell you the people have lost a lot of taste as far as Finance Bill is concerned, especially because they now interrogate it based on what taxes are we expected to pay more. That's why you could see even someone struggling to tell of the gains of that particular proposal. Mm-hmm. But they are looking into ni nini wanaongeza, ni nini wanatoa. So what are they trying to propose? But I need to say, to comment something really important. And of course, I hope the government people are watching us. I need to tell you that taxes increase or otherwise is not the problem. It is not the big elephant in the house. Fred, I need to tell you something. Are you aware in Europe, taxes are more than 50%? Mm-hmm. More than 50%. Of course, in Kenya, they are more than 50%. But what makes the difference between Europe and ourselves? If any government does not find a reason to make people pay tax voluntarily without complaining, then that government has failed. We will see more of this. We will see more of demonstrations into the future if some things are not going to be done correctly. And I want to tell you something. In Europe, education is free. They are able to provide education, quality education to their citizens, mm-hmm. from nursery school to the universities and everything for free at an affordable rate. In Europe, hospitals, you can be able to walk into a public hospital and be treated and go home. If you go there, public, schools are better than the private ones. People prefer the public schools than the private schools. So systems are working. If you go to Europe, people go to work by bicycles. They don't have to ride on the public transport because you've been provided serious infrastructures by the government using your taxes, such that you can be able to come here without using your car. So whether the prices of fuel fluctuate, you can still have an alternative that does not necessarily need you to budget more as far as your transportation is concerned. Look at infrastructures in terms of the airports, in terms of the roads, in terms of what we call the commuter trains, like what I had Odede comment about what France is proposing in terms of getting people out of town and looking at jams and congestions and things like that. So there are alternatives that has been provided by the government. Imagine a scenario where even the affordability of what we call the mortgage for the acquisition of their houses, it's something affordable. Most people in America and in Europe, they live with mortgages. I mean, they live in their own houses, but it doesn't really pinch them. Look at accessibility to work opportunities in terms of industrializations and things like that. People can access employment. That's why many people are moving from here trying to go and seek employment there, because guys there have an option of choosing. So if we will continue having finance bills proposing tax increases where the utilization of that tax is not benefiting or it's not being seen. I had one guy there question, at least a very important question, Fred. I hope you noticed. Mm-hmm. He said that the amount of tax we are raising, we've even removed some money from fuel levy to be able to go and pay our debt. he have asked a very simple question. That debt is being paid to who? We don't know. And he have also, in fact, added and saying that some of those debts were taken and never arrived here. So we are paying debts that are in people's pockets. That is the biggest problem we have as a country.
Okay.
Whether we like it or not, we must do away with corruption, and we must bring about accountability to the highest level in government level. We must stop this idea of running government from our pockets and from our houses, where you go as president and you start by the roadside and you say, barabara hoye, and then on the next thing you say, we have committed 25 billion shillings, 45 trillion to be able to come and develop roads here in Laikipia. You go to Nyeri and say the same, but it is not in budget.
Not a finance bill.
It is not in budget. So what I'm saying, you cannot be saying things and we are confused as a country.
And that's the level of understanding that the Kenyan has. It's a year to elections, and we know politicians can say a lot of things, but this is where the rubber meets the road, with the appropriations bill and the finance bill, that you cannot just promise one thing, yet we cannot see it on paper where it's provided for. I don't know if my question was valid on the level of understanding or the level of involvement in this budgeting process by the Kenyan. Because listening to Bunge la Mwananchi there, you actually see that people do understand this kind of discussion. I'm seeing someone saying, greetings, please Muthoni Brenda, bring the show, Bunge la Mwananchi Nyando Road Kayole, Bunge la Mwananchi Jacaranda, meaning that more people would want to contribute to some of these discussions. Am I wrong in probably assessing the level of interaction?
No, you've never been right. As right as you are today. Because Kenyans have woken up. We are having a very woke generation today, whereby we have come to realize that we, the people, when you keep hearing people saying we the people have woken up to the reality that this country is ours to run, to own. We are the ones who finance it. So it's not a favor. For a long time, there has been a huge disconnect. The government used to be seen as something that comes to do favors or to rescue Kenyans. But now Kenyans know that we are well led by a constitution that clearly says the people first form a constitution. That constitution form a government to run what? Public policy. And this public policy will be financed by the public taxation. Once you have that understanding, then you must be very careful and keen to understand where is your tax going. Because every government civil servant is an employee of Kenyans. I always say, whether I'm working or not, whether I have a job or not as a Kenyan, there is number one employee that you pay. That is the president. To run this country, to manage our economy. So that is number one. Number two, Kenyans have also realized that the more we try to dissociate politics with the economy, the more we remain strangled. The yoke of oppression continues to reign on us. So you have to understand that politics is the art of management of our resources, is the art of organizing our society, is the art of planning our development to meet our needs as a nation. That's why you see there's a lot of heat, people wanting to know what is happening in the political realm. Today, even those who are non-political for a long time, they'll tell you, I understand it is the politics that makes the cost of fuel to go high. It's the politics that make the education of grade 10 to be mismanaged. So people understand that politics is not about it's not about sloganeering. It is the art of organizing our country, and everybody knows that. So you hear people saying, no, you're kazi ya MP. That's not the work of the governor. The president should not have said that. The constitution does not allow that. We have a very woke generation, and I'm very happy with that.
And even that promise that there will be relief for taxpayers that the Mbadi made, and you see the argument that he said it's been approved by cabinet.
And people are asking, is that the role of the cabinet?
Yes, should it be that simple? It's just a cabinet level and happy.
Because we are a country that ought to be led by the rule of law. And that is what people are calling everybody to order. We have a constitution, abide by it. That's number 3. Number 4, we are heavily suffering from what you call tax injustice. Tax injustice. That is what is killing this country. That is what is draining every Kenyan. That is what is making the cost of living unbearable day by day. And the tax injustice plays out in different forms and shapes. What the Treasury is trying to do, they're trying to do what you call first aid, patch and go into matters of our economy. Number 1, the amount of tax that is collected is highly misappropriated. That goes without saying. Number 2, you have a lot of people who will try to argue the effort the government is making to try and make life more bearable for the country. But you know, the number one order of the CES Treasury ought to have been publishing the public debt audit, so that you cannot start making a budget without knowing how much you owe and to whom and how much you are bound to collect. We know our tax revenue is 2 point something, 3, 4, 5 trillion. We know our VAT is around 400, 500 billion. So these are not figures you need to re-engineer. So the appropriation ought to be, this is a projection of our tax, these are the projects we want to do, this is the money we're projecting to collect, this will be the deficit, this is the much you borrow. What has been happening in the last decade, 13 years, since Uhuru, is an accumulation of what you call the odious debt, money that is not approved by law, by our National Assembly. And hence, our tax revenue, the money that we collect, goes to paying debt. This year, and this gentleman raised very valid question about the repayment of our loan.
Which loan?
Collective, they're asking how much. Now, they raise a very valid point because they're asking whom are we paying and what are we paying.
Okay.
This year alone, we are going to pay 2.4 trillion. Last year, we paid 2.2 trillion. Next year, we pay 2.6 trillion. Our debt never goes down. It keeps on ballooning. So if we had an audit, we'd be knowing, I owe Adede this much, I owe ICWA this much. So how do we renegotiate? How do we balance between development and wage bill? How do we manage our tax regime? But all these crumbs you are seeing here on the front page, this is just patch and go. The Treasury trying to make effort of trying to calm down the Kenyans. But unfortunately, Kenyans are very woke. In the next couple of weeks, Fred, I tell you, there is going to be a very heated conversation about the bill.
Okay.
Come June, before CS Bandi comes to read the budget, you will see a major uprising and resistance on things that do not hold right in terms of tax justice and appropriate utilization of our resources.
And just in 1 minute, Odede, do you feel that the next 2 weeks that the National Assembly has provided for people to give their memoranda on this, that is an opportunity that Kenyans will take to heart and actually come out and give their opinion?
Yes, Fred. I think the Kenyans have always rose to the occasion. I don't remember any request for memorandum that has gone without Kenyans actually coming out to put their issues on the table, be it from the commissions, independent commissions, the constitution making, the normal debates and bills that usually go through Parliament. Kenyans always rise to occasions. My worry is just one thing, Fred. I feel, and I think it has been evident that much as Kenyans are woke, again, there is still a mix-up of understanding of Kenyans about the budget process all the way to the end. Some people still think finance bill is actually the budget. Budget is different from finance bill. Budget process requires this level of attention from Kenyans, the same way they are giving it to finance bill. Unfortunately, if you look and compare the data, you will not find Kenyans more active and focused in the budget the way they are focused in the finance bill. And this is also hurting the same Kenyans because if we get more focused and active in the budget, then we will be able to put our representatives and legislators to account for some things, because they are supposed to ensure that those things that we need dearly are actually in those budget, in those financial year of every budget. Unfortunately, we come to interact in details and deeply with the finance bill, which is only looking at how the revenues will be collected to actualize that budget, the budget that we didn't take care of. Even our media houses need to actually make it now a routine to start converging on the budget at that level and understand what does Bunge la Mwananchi think about the things that have been put in this budget this year. Because they come to talk about how the money will be raised, and our focus is only how Mwananchi might pay smaller tax, and we are not looking at the things that were put in that budget.
All right. And yes, the budgeting season is here. With the appropriations bill coming up, as well as the finance bill, and Kenyans need to scrutinize all this. And this has been our biggest discussion, and we'll continue with this. But because I can see we only about 7 minutes, and we need to interact with some politics kidogo. Big by-election coming up this week. Emuru Wadikir on Thursday, and we've just come from a weekend where party primaries were conducted in Olkalau, UDA and DCP. But before, I really hope I'll get time to give you for your final comments so that you can talk about this, even if it's only for 30 seconds. Muthoni Brenda is on the beat as well on this one. What are people saying about the by-elections that you anticipate? And please make it brief and snappy.
Thank you once again, Fred Indimuli, and here at Bunge la Mwananchi. They are discussing, by the way, about the by-elections. Remember, the Select Committee Chair, Mr. Kiria, told us that the by-elections were among the motions here at Bunge la Mwananchi in the morning. So I'm just going to get their opinions on the mood and the temperatures that has been set in Olkalau and Emuru Wadikir, and whether they think that this is just a teaser of what 2027 will look like. Habari yako, good morning.
Salama sana.
Umekuwa ukifuatilia hizi by-elections zenye ziko Olkalau na Emuru Wadikir?
Ndio. Ninashukuru sana kwa fursa hii ama wakati huu ambao nimepewa. Langu ni kwamba tunatarajia kuona mambo vitofauti. Sana sana kwangu nahisi ya kwamba serikali haijapatia wana opposition wakati wao wafanye siasa zao. Serikali hatujui ni biashara, ni kazi inafanyia raia ama iko katika hali ya siasa. Sasa hivi tunavyoangalia kwamba serikali imekuwa katika hali ya siasa. Ikiwa kuna wakati utafanyika siasa, acha tuone wakati itafikia kama wakati huu ambao tuna by election. Na wakati tunaposema kwamba kuna by election inakuja, sio kuona rais kule, maana hakuna mambo ya urais tunaenda kufanya Olkalau. Nataka kuona kama ni wadoko wa chama waende wafanye uchaguzi kule. Rais amesimamia nchi mzima. Hafai kuenda Olkalau kujitangaza yeye ndio UDA. Anafaa kusimama ajue ya kwamba yeye amesimamia na amewakilisha kila mtu aliye ndani na aliye nje. Sababu mimi ninakerwa na mambo inayoendelea. Watu wanaokemea upande wa serikali wanafanya siasa zao kwa hali wakiwa na ulinzi wa serikali. Wale walio upande wa upinzani wanashurutishwa, wanaonekana kama hawastahili kukaa katika nchi, hawatakikani kufanya siasa. Hilo ndio jambo ambalo mimi linaniudhi katika hali ya siasa ya Kenya sasa hivi. Manake nikirudisha kule nyuma, rais aliyekuwepo aliruhusu rais wa sasa kufanya siasa zake. Japo hata kama wakati hujafika, aliruhusiwa akafanya siasa zake, akasunguka nchi akiwa anafanya mambo. Na nakumbuka wakati rais mstaafu akisema ya kwamba mkiona yule wa kutangatanga mumpe mambo yenu aniletee. Hatukujua hata kama kuna ndani yake kuna mambo ya mafurukano ama malumbano, lakini aliyeko hataki kuona yule mtu mpinzani akifanya siasa, hataki kuona akiwa ako challenge. Hivyo ndio siasa, hiyo ndio tatizo mimi binafsi niko nayo. Kwa hivyo Olkalau ninatarajia kwamba nitaona mambo tofauti na mambo tuliyoona Malaba na mambo tuliyoona kule kwa kina Mbeere. Tunatarajia mambo ikuwe tofauti, kila mtu apatiwe nafasi yake, ajieleze kwa raia, auze sera zake. Raia ndio waamuzi, sisi tusishurutishwe, tusiletewe mtu ambao hatutaki. Tunataka si wenyewe tuchakue mtu. Na hii tunataka iwe picha ya 2027 ya kwamba mambo yatakuwa hivi. Hatutaki IEBC ambao wataekemea upande moja. Nataka kuona kwamba ikiwa mtu atakeuka sheria za uchaguzi, IEBC wako na haki ya kumsimamisha, kumuondoa kwenye ile mstari ama ile orodha. Hilo ndio tunatarajia kwamba IEBC watafanya kazi yao, hawatakuwa press and worship wa serikali. Na hilo ndio tunataka waanzie hapa kutuonyesha mwelekeo utakuwa vipi. Maana kidogo kuna tashwishi katika sisi bunge la mwananchi na katika raia ama katika nchi ya kwamba marais wamekuwepo. Kila mara tukiona hata rais akienda nchi jirani ya Tanzania, kunaongelelewa Gen Z kwa njia isiyo mzuri. Haongei kitu. Tunaona ya kwamba tuko na tatizo.
Kwa hivyo wewe, your opinion on these by-elections is that the opposition pia wapewe nafasi wafanye siasa zao?
Hiyo ndio yangu. Maoni yangu ni opposition wapewe nafasi na opposition wasituletee propaganda. Opposition watuambie ni nini wanaona ya kwamba wanasabadilisha mbali na kile serikali haifanyi. Lakini tunapoendelea hivyo ni vile tujue, kwa sababu huu ni mbunge tunaenda kuchakua, si rais. Hauwezi katuambia kwamba tuulize wana opposition rekodi yao ni gani. Kulingana na mimi kibinafsi, mwana opposition hakuli ushuru wetu. Hakuna ofisi tumemtengea atufanyie kazi. Kashakwa yuko nje, Kalonzo ako nje, hakuna ushuru wetu wanakula. Yule mtu tunauliza mandate ni president mmoja Uhuru William Samuel Ruto. Kazi yake maana yeye ndiye amekalia ushuru yetu.
Thank you.
Kila kitu yake inatokana na ushuru yetu. Wabunge wanakula ushuru yetu. Tunataka kujua mbali na hii mambo ya by election, rais atueleza mambo kadha wa kadha nini inaendelea katika.
Thank you. Hey, habari yako, good morning.
Thank you very much. Kwa majina naitwa Koech David Ole Tigira. And for the record, I'm a voter in Emurua Dikir.
Oh, you're a voter in Emurua Dikir?
As we speak, in fact, I'm from campaign, so I actually have the groundwork information. Now, I want to start by saying UDA must win both by-election. Because to us, it reflects where we are going in the presidential campaign. So there is much relationship between the by-election and the presidential campaign that is coming. So it is a must win. But in any case, let me begin by saying that Emurua Dikir has given us what we were looking for. We were looking for political tolerance. A situation where the opposition and the government are campaigning peacefully, selling their own agenda peacefully, campaigning, moving around the constituents peacefully. So Emurua Dikir, congratulations. And number two, real contest will be in El Kalau. Real contest will be in El Kalau. There is no contest in Emurua Dikir. What we are seeing in Emurua Dikir is just noise. And UDA are winning mapema. So,
lakini unajua wewe uko na conflicts of interest in Ol Kalou?
Yes, I have. No, I don't have conflict of interest. I do not have conflict of interest.
As we wind up.
I have expressed interest that we must win both by-election. Express interest because to us there is a reflection between the by-election and the national election. So now let me point out very quickly two things. Number one, ya kwamba parties must also learn that the moment they get it wrong in their primaries, it is a disaster. That is number one. Number two, that the agenda must be very clear. Thank you very much.
The contest yenye unangoja sana ni hiyo ya Ol Kalou.
Ol Kalou are coming and UDA must win Ol Kalou.
Have a commentary you? Ol Kalou?
Ol Kalou hakuna contest. Tunajua ya kwamba hata hii ya Wamudhende hii ilifanyika na IBC. Na ndio maana tatizo letu liko hivi. Tunasema ya kwamba tunataka kuona sisi ambao hatujaridhishwa na utendakazi wa serikali, tunataka kuona ya kwamba tunaanza kujipanga mapema. Watu walio ndani ya serikali wamekuwa na ukasumba ya kwamba tushashinda. Lakini tunajua ya kwamba uamuzi uko kwetu wananchi. Sisi ndio tutakaamua. Na sisi tunajua ya kwamba uongozi ulioko. Wapende wasipende ni warekebishe mapema, warudi nyumbani. La usivyo njia iko wazi. Njia ni mbili.
All right. Na my producer pale ananiambia cut so maybe a second.
My name is Joseph Mungoma. And mine is just to speak to the Kenyan mind and the Kenyan voter. Our by-election, they tend to be very emotional. But the reality is that a by-election is an exercise that has been mandated by the Constitution 2010. That means that the members of any elected leader, whenever of office falls vacant, there must be a situation where the citizens are given an opportunity to go back and vote a new representative. So the situation in Ol Kalou and the situation in Emurua Dikir is an opportunity for the electorate now to rethink how they voted their first members of parliament and what they are supposed to do now, reflecting into 2027 and the service delivery on the ground. My only concern is that the information the citizens get by the time they are going to vote is not adequate to help the citizen to make an informed choice.
So what is your advice to the electorate in Ol Kalou?
We need to have a situation where the members of the county assembly, members of parliament and senators are supposed to do some capacity building during their tenure in office so that we can evaluate the governments in place. Simply because a member of parliament has only 3 roles: to legislate, oversight, and represent. Means I cannot go to an election as a member of parliament and start talking about roads. It's not my role to talk about roads. The issue of roads is the executive. So there is a lot of misinformation to the electorates that they vote emotionally, and at the end of it, we vote wrong leaders. And that has been our situation with the Constitution 2010.
All right. Thank you so much, Muthoni Brenda, and to all the members of the Bunge la Mwananchi at the archives, outside archives in the CBD. Thank you for your contribution to this. And now as we wrap up, at least I can see I have about a minute and a half for you. You've just come from a gruesome primaries for the DCP party. But according to the dailies, that was very indicative in comparison to what the UDA exercise came out with. What is your feeling about, I know it's 2 months away, in July, the Ol-Kalou by-election. But now, because we're talking about Emurua Dikir this week, what is your feeling about this exercise?
So first and foremost, Fred, it was good to see that parties were able to give the citizens an opportunity to elect someone through the party primaries. That was very commendable. And so to say, I have been following up what is happening in Emurua Dikir. And I am worried that the government is sensing defeat. And I want to tell you, there is a way you can take up a position, but you still sense defeat based on the number of people that have voted against you. Politics has a lot to do with perception. And that is why the government is putting a fight in this particular by-election so that they can have a narrative of that if this happens, then that can happen. So it shapes the narrative, and that is why you saw the government investing very heavily on Bere. And despite the fact that that particular election had a lot of questions and it is already in court right now as we speak, the government wanted to win the narrative or the perception that we won that election, so we are still in control. But in Ol-Kalou, things are quite different. I mean, you saw from the turnout, what I would call the turnout on both by-elections that were held in different days. Both the UDA one that was held on Friday and the main election, which now the people of Ol-Kalou are saying that, the uchaguzi sio ya leo, uchaguzi ni ya kesho. Because the government can already see the writing on the wall. The Ol-Kalou people are so much determined. I don't want to talk about it so much because you would regard me as biased because I'm a DCP member. But the writing is on the wall. The last time I was here before I hand over, I told you. And I know, Fred, panapo majaliwa yake Mwenyezi Mungu, we will be with you here. And I will remind you that Ol-Kalou sio Mbere. And things are going to be tough for the government. It doesn't matter. I mean, Bere, they spent 600 million. We are ready for them to spend $1 billion in Ol-Kalou, but they will still lose it. Wow. They will lose that election. I don't know of Emurua Dikir. I can say 50-50. And as I told you, if DCP gets close to UDA, we are expecting to win that election. But even if UDA takes it, because you need to be optimistic in your thinking, and we are close to them, that means that there's a lot of dissent in their own backyard.
Okay. A minute and a half for me.
Yeah, I mean, very quickly. Number one is to call for tolerance. Because again, remember, we don't want, we saw what happened in Kasipul. I would not want a repeat of that. Every Kenyan deserves to have their democratic space, their democratic right to participate in a political discourse and go and vote for their representative. So I'd call for tolerance across our divide. I know we as Safina Party, we are not participating in most of the by-elections, but we are watching. What is important to realize is that it is not always a reflection, the by-elections are not always a reflection of the national politics. Because there are people who are popularly, like now, if you look at the candidate of, I think UDA, he was a member of the late member of parliament team, who was a Jubilee member. So what does that say about the party politics?
Talking about Ol-Kalou.
Yes, in Ol-Kalou, yes. So we just have to wait and see. Because again, the constituents need to make sure that they're sending the right person for representation into parliament. Sometimes we get lost in saying I belong to this party and therefore I'm vying on this political party ticket because it's seeming more popular. But what is the agenda? What is the manifesto of that party? Okay. We have seen people from Bere North who the guy was elected on a UDA ticket. Millions of money was spent during that campaign season. Today you go to Mbere, save it for the rain, people would be starving of hunger. There is no water for irrigation, you know. But a lot of money was spent during the campaign. How I wish that money had been diverted to do projects that would have impacted the livelihoods of that constituency. So I'm calling for tolerance and I'm prevailing on each and every voter. Make a conscious decision on the person you're sending to represent you.
Finally, Wanodede.
Thank you, Fred. I have two things that I look at from experience. I think different from my brother, by-elections in Kenya are shaped by the national politics. This is my reasoning. Most and almost all by-elections in the country gets the top leadership of government and the opposition in that one constituency, and they never sell the agenda of those candidates. They sell the agenda of the national politics. You will go to by-election in Olkalau and you will see William Ruto, Kindiki, and the entire government campaigning for their candidate of UDA. You will see Rigiji, Kalonzo, and the rest of the United Alternative Government campaigning for the candidate they believe is belong to them. But rarely will you find them discussing the issues that these gentlemen actually want to do for their constituencies. They will be discussing the national politics. And that is why every by-election becomes a contest about the coming election. It does not just remain me and Fred looking forward to represent our people on matters that our people want represented. So you will see that happening in Emurua Dikir and whatever. But the national, the general election gives space because the president, the opposition candidates are going all over the country. So sometimes they give us a breather if we are looking for this constituency, you and me. So we sell our personal agendas to the constituents we want to get as elected. And that is why that is the reason why in the general elections, we are likely to have somebody coming in parliament as an independent candidate, coming in parliament with a smaller party. But on a by-election, it is difficult to get such.
Asante sana, and we are out of time because Monday Blitz is coming up. I'm actually being run out of studio, unfortunately.
I forgot something very important.
5 seconds.
We need to ensure that the tolerance that is being called out here runs across to the government here. On Friday night, they abducted one of the DCP's official in Olkalau. They ended up dumping him in Narok the same night. So why are we becoming this intolerant? Why is the government not setting the pace? I mean, not being a good example. We have a government that is not tolerant, a government that is fearing defeat, and it is uncalled for.
Yes. The by-election in Emurua Dikir and 2 other wards will be happening. One in Elgeyo Marakwet and the other one, I think, in Samburu will be happening on Thursday this week. The other one for Olkalau comes up 16th of July, but the campaigns are already up. The 2 parties in Olkalau, UDA and DCP, carried out their party primaries this past weekend, and they're already making projections on that. Thank you so much, Iko Ambote, Josephat Kamanya and Mesha Kodede, our panelists this morning, as we took a look at so many different things, the finance bill, the Africa Summit that's happening here in Nairobi, as well as matters by elections. Thank you so much. After the break, Monday Blitz coming up. Arsenal walifanya ile kitu, 5 points clear at the top of the EPL. Watu wa Arsenal leo wanavaa tu jazi. Ni vile hawajatoa, hata mimi yangu iko ndani, nikitoa hii utalewa, mambo ni tofauti. Akatela Macy, Fred Arocho, and the team will be here for that conversation. My name is Fred Indimuli. Good morning.